stopped for whatever reason. I mean, one of the things that came to the fore during the debate as to whether or not the president should be the one to present the budget was that former finance ministers used to do this and do an excellent job of it. What do you make of traditions developing, say, outside the law and maybe taking a life form of their own?
Yeah, traditions should develop, but you know, they are what we call international best practices. In all major democracies all over the world, where democracy is practiced in its real form, you never see the second in command or third in command or a minister. Except maybe, well, in the United Kingdom, I know it's the Chancellor of the Exchequer who does that. But we're practicing the presidential system of government where the president is the all in all.
But do you think the National Assembly sees this beyond their time as legislatures and beyond the time of the current president as the president, because that's what it will boil down to at the end of the day?
Yeah, definitely they see it beyond their tenure. That is why they propose a bill. You know, because if the bill is assented to or they override the president's veto, then it will bind everybody going down the road, apart from the fact that, well, there's this issue of a conflict between what they have passed and Section 67.
I know that there was some argument some time ago if whether or not the National Assembly could invite the president for a joint session to address, and yes. The way that turned out, it wasn't, and then
yes,
you have this.
That was probably what gave birth to this bill. If you remember, there was an occasion that they summoned the president to come and address them, I believe, on the state of the nation, terrorism, and the president didn't go. I think they even gave him an ultimatum. Yeah. He didn't go. So probably in their mind, they said, okay, we'll pass a law to nip this kind of attitude in the bud. But the problem is when you pass laws when you target it at an individual or at an event, then you know you likely run into this kind of stormy waters, because you need definitely to do your own work. You need to get your legal advisors, because I mean, why didn't the National Assembly, why did they not at any point in time look at Section 67?
But if I may come in there, have you also considered the fact that this bill was first introduced in 2004? Yes. The 4th, 5th, and 6th Assembly did not, it wasn't assented to by the presidents. All the presidents turned it down. So don't you think this is like one reason why the National Assembly said, okay, no, this time we want this done or we will veto it?
Yes, but they let them do it the right way. Let them. They amended the Constitution. I think it was in maybe 2011. This is one of the provisions that they should have amended, but they want to take the easy way out because it is easier to pass a bill than to amend the Constitution.
You know, I think it was yesterday where we had Mike Ahamba, SAN, who also spoke on this kind of matter, saying, look, they may just be overreaching themselves the way they seem to be going now. But if, just like you have with the 2013 budget now, as we speak, it's not been passed, if they had gone to court, the executive now, at the time concerning what the National Assembly could do you think we would have gotten beyond this stage where the budget is?
Yes, some things like this kind of issue cannot really be solved by the courts, because, you know, I think it's something better settled by both parties sitting down and narrowing down their differences. Because for the presidency to take the National Assembly to court, it's like, you know, open declaration of warfare. And if it does that, a lot of things it needs or requires from the National Assembly will not be done. For example, you can be sure that some of his nominees for appointments to office will be rejected. The budget might not be passed.
Wow.
So I would not advise legal action in this kind of issue. I mean, The funny thing is that the president and the National Assembly, they're all in the same party.
It would seem that, you know, the president has already suggested ways he thinks that this should actually go by offering some, you know, considerations to some clauses and offering alternatives to what is there presently. What do you think about those alternatives?
Yeah, the alternatives, I think, from his own point of view, the only thing I see in his proposed amendment, which to me ought to be rejected, is the fact that he wants to be able to send anybody, or the vice president,
or the text of it.
Yes, or the text or the report to the National Assembly. I don't think that should fly. That shouldn't fly at all.
Ordinarily, sorry to butt in there, but ordinarily, do you think that a change of certain words can actually help? For instance, last year we heard that the National Assembly summoned the president, assuming it was more like the National Assembly invites the president. I mean, what difference do you think that makes in terms of language? A whole
lot of difference, because that's why I said they need to just sit down and talk. And that's why the president has, I believe, special assistants on National Assembly and all that. These are the kind of issues, because when you present a bill, the president wants amendments. It's a matter of give and take, rather than go to litigate it. It's a matter of give and take, because you don't want to unduly raise the temperature in the country by the time the president takes the National Assembly to court.
But how do you see this eventually playing out? Because if he says, look, amend some of these clauses, and the National Assembly previously has said, if he doesn't assent to it, we'll veto it.
I think, like most things play out in Nigeria, it's soon going to taper out. Because, you know, issues come to the fore, the press are on about it. After a while, we just move on to the next crisis. And that is put in the back burner. Everybody forgets about it until maybe in another year or two, someone will invite him and he refuses to come. Then they dust up the bill and say, oh, yes, we have this in the pipeline.
Like this one since 2004.
Exactly.
But again, the big question is, how come nobody looked or properly looked at Section 67?
That is what the National Assembly, their legal team, that they need to ask them that question. That when drafting this bill, why didn't you look at Section 67, at the potential conflict, and walk a way around it?
Or could the intendment have blinded reason in this case?
Yes.
If you're looking to summon the president.
Exactly. Maybe the passions were inflamed, and it did not allow them to be dispassionate and objective about the business of passing laws. Because when your emotions get involved, you're like, oh, we need to do this ASAP. You do not cross your T's and dot your I's.
Is that what you think played out here?
Well, I don't know. It would be speculation for me to say. But, I mean, one can just hazard a guess that, I mean, it's because it's strange. The National Assembly, I'm sure they have a full complement of lawyers advising them. So it will be very strange for the lawyers all through the reading of the bill, all through the drafting process, for nobody to have spotted that Section 67 poses a potential fatal conflict for the draft bill.
How would you rate the president's response in terms of, you know, his reply to the National Assembly stating his objections? You know, is it something that should cause conflict?
I don't think so. I mean, look, the man is entitled to say, this is the version of the bill that I'm going to assent to. That is his prerogative. He's exercising his prerogative, you know. So it is left for them to negotiate and compromise and now come to an agreeable and acceptable form of the bill.
What would you advise the National Assembly to do in response?
The National Assembly should negotiate with him. If the negotiations are not fruitful, then they should go back to the drawing board. There is also a process in the pipeline to amend the Constitution. So they should include Section 67 amongst the sections of the Constitution that are being considered for amendment.
Yeah, but if they include it the way they want to, to the extent that they can summon the president.
Yes.
What does that do? Because he also talks about the principle of separation of powers. Because for you to summon the president, what does that do to the office?
Well, I don't really think summoning the National Assembly, summoning the president violates the principle of separation of powers, because the National Assembly, they're there. It's a tripod system. Each arm of government is to act as a check on the other. So you have the National Assembly. They have their oversight functions to check on the executive. So for them to ask him to come and give an account, I don't see how that violates the principles of separation of powers. And don't forget, in other countries, other democratic countries, this is done without any rancor. In the United States Constitution, it is mandatory for the president to address the Congress every year.
Okay, we'll just keep an eye on this and see how eventually, or what happens next, because both the president has suggested some redrafting of some clauses, and the National Assembly says, look, we'll veto this. I guess Section 67 hinges. All of this will eventually hinge or go back to that big section. It's becoming big now, Section 67. Well, thank you for coming on. Moyo Oshere Onigbanjo, a legal practitioner, speaking about this State of the Nation Address Bill. We'll return in just a moment.